The wind howled like a wild animal across the Montana plains, pushing snow sideways in sheets so thick that Tom couldn't see 5 feet ahead of his truck. He'd been living on the remote ranch for 15 years now, and he'd learned to respect storms like this one. Most folks would have stayed inside by their fireplace, but Tom had cattle to check on. The animals needed him, especially in weather this brutal. He was driving slowly along the old highway that cut through his property when something caught his eye. At first he thought it was just another snowdrift, but there was something different about this one. Something dark poked through the white. Tom stopped his truck and grabbed his flashlight. The beam cut through the swirling snow, and what he saw made his heart jump. It was a car, completely buried except for part of the roof. And there, about 20 feet away, was a person lying in the snow. Tom ran as fast as he could through the deep drifts, his boots sinking with every step. When he reached the figure, he could see it was a woman, maybe in her 30s. Her lips were blue, her skin pale as ice, and she wasn't moving. Tom had seen hypothermia before. His grandfather had taught him about it when he was just a boy. This woman was in serious trouble. He scooped her up in his arms, surprised by how light she felt, and carried her through the storm to his truck. She was unconscious, barely breathing, but she was alive. The drive back to his cabin felt like it took forever. Tom kept glancing at the woman beside him, wrapped in his heavy coat. He'd been alone on this ranch for so long that having another person here felt strange. But right now, that didn't matter. What mattered was keeping her alive. His cabin was warm and dry, thank goodness. Tom had kept the fire going all day. He laid the woman on his couch and went to work. He'd learned these skills from his grandfather, who'd been a medic in the war. First, he checked her pulse. Weak but steady. Then he began the slow process of warming her up. He knew he couldn't warm her too fast or it could kill her, so he wrapped her in blankets, not too many at first. He heated up some water on the stove and made warm compresses for her hands and feet. Every few minutes, he checked her pulse and watched her breathing. The storm raged outside all night, but Tom didn't sleep. He sat in his chair next to the couch, keeping watch. Sometimes the woman would shiver, which was actually a good sign. It meant her body was trying to warm itself up. Around 3 in the morning, she started mumbling in her sleep. Tom couldn't make out the words, but her voice sounded sad. As the sun came up, the woman's color started looking better. Her breathing was stronger, too. Tom made some coffee and toast, hoping the smell might wake her up. He was exhausted, but he felt good knowing he'd probably saved her life. Around 8 in the morning, her eyes finally opened. She looked confused and scared at first, which Tom understood. Waking up in a stranger's house would be frightening for anyone. He stayed in his chair, giving her space. "Hey there," he said softly. "You're safe. You were caught in the storm last night. I'm Tom. This is my place." The woman tried to sit up but felt dizzy. Tom brought her a glass of water and helped her get comfortable. She told him her name was Lisa, and she'd been driving to her husband's funeral when the blizzard hit. She'd gotten lost trying to find another route and had crashed her car into a ditch. Tom felt a pang of sympathy. This woman had been going through something terrible, and then the storm had nearly killed her on top of it. He told her she was welcome to stay as long as she needed. The roads wouldn't be clear for days anyway. Lisa thanked him with tears in her eyes. She said she didn't know what would have happened if he hadn't found her. Tom just nodded. He wasn't good with emotional stuff. Living alone for 15 years had made him awkward around people, especially women. But something about Lisa's situation touched his heart. The next few hours were quiet. Lisa slept a lot, which was normal after what she'd been through. Tom went about his usual routine, checking on the animals and keeping the fire going. But he found himself looking over at her more often than he cared to admit. He'd built this solitary life after his divorce had torn his world apart. His ex-wife had left him for a lawyer in the city, taking their daughter with her. The betrayal had cut deep, and Tom had decided he was better off alone. The ranch became his whole world. The animals didn't lie to you or break your heart. But now, watching this stranger sleep on his couch, Tom felt something he hadn't felt in years. Not attraction exactly, though Lisa was pretty even after her ordeal. It was more like concern for another human being. The feeling made him uncomfortable because he'd worked so hard to shut that part of himself off. When evening came, Lisa felt strong enough to eat some soup. They sat at his small kitchen table, not talking much. Tom had never been good at conversation, and Lisa seemed lost in her own thoughts. But it wasn't an unpleasant silence. It felt almost peaceful. having someone else there as the wind continued to howl outside. That night, Tom gave Lisa his bedroom and slept on the couch. He lay awake for hours listening to the storm and thinking about how quickly life could change. Yesterday, he'd been just another lonely cowboy going through his routine. Today, he was responsible for someone else's life. He didn't know it yet, but this woman who'd literally fallen into his world would change everything. The ice around his heart, built up over 15 years of hurt and disappointment, was about to meet its match. Sometimes the most unexpected encounters happen in the middle of life's worst storms, and sometimes those encounters save more than just one life. The storm kept going for 3 more days. Lisa got stronger each day, but she was still stuck at Tom's cabin. The roads were completely blocked with snow, and the weather report said more storms were coming. Lisa felt grateful to be alive, but she also felt awkward being a stranger in someone else's home. Tom was awkward too, but he tried to make her comfortable. He wasn't used to having company. For 15 years, he'd lived alone on this ranch, and he'd liked it that way. After his divorce, he'd decided that people just brought pain and disappointment. Animals were different. They were loyal and honest. On the second day, Lisa felt well enough to help with small things around the cabin. She washed the dishes after Tom cooked breakfast. She folded the blankets she'd been using. Tom watched her moving around his kitchen, and it stirred up feelings he'd buried deep. His ex-wife Jenny had left him when their daughter Amy was only 5 years old. Jenny said ranch life was too lonely, too hard. She wanted excitement and money and a social life. She found all of that with her new husband, a successful lawyer in Denver. The divorce took half of Tom's ranch, and worse than that, took his daughter. Jenny made it hard for Tom to see Amy. She filled the little girl's head with stories about how her daddy chose cows over people, how he was cold and couldn't love anyone properly. Over the years, Amy's visits became less frequent. Now she was 20 and lived in California. She barely called anymore. Lisa had her own story of loss. On the 3rd day, when she was feeling better, she told Tom about her husband, David. They'd been married for 8 years. David was a rock climber and hiking guide. He loved adventure and the outdoors. 6 months ago, he'd been leading a group up a mountain in Colorado when a storm hit. A rock slide killed him instantly. The worst part, Lisa said, staring into her coffee cup, is that I begged him not to go. I had a bad feeling about that trip, but David said I worried too much. He said he'd been climbing for 20 years and knew what he was doing. Tom listened without saying much. He wasn't good with words, especially when it came to comfort. But he understood loss. He understood how it felt when someone you loved left you behind. Lisa had been living in Seattle with David. After he died, she couldn't afford their apartment anymore. The medical bills from trying to save David's life had eaten up their savings. She'd been planning to move back to her hometown in Wyoming when she got the call about David's funeral in Montana. His climbing buddies wanted to have a memorial service at his favorite mountain. I almost didn't go, Lisa admitted, but I thought I owed it to him. Now I'm wondering if I should have just stayed home. Tom surprised himself by speaking up. Sometimes the worst things lead to the best things, he said. If you hadn't come, you might have froze to death in that car. Lisa smiled a little. It was the first real smile Tom had seen from her. It changed her whole face, made her look younger and prettier. Tom felt his chest tighten. He got up quickly to refill his coffee, needing to look away. They settled into a strange routine over the next few days. Tom would go out to feed the cattle and horses, even in the snow. Lisa would tidy up the cabin and try to help with whatever she could. In the evenings, they'd eat dinner together and watch the news or an old movie on Tom's small TV. Neither of them talked much, but the silence wasn't uncomfortable anymore. They were both people who'd been hurt, who'd learned to be careful with their hearts. Being around each other felt safe because neither expected anything from the other. Lisa noticed that Tom was gentler with animals than most people she'd known were with humans. She watched him through the window as he made sure each horse and cow had enough food and water, even in the terrible weather. His animals trusted him completely. Tom noticed that Lisa had a sadness in her eyes that matched his own. But he also noticed that she hummed while she worked, soft melodies that made his cabin feel warmer somehow. She was neat and thoughtful, always cleaning up after herself and trying not to be a burden. On the 6th day, the power went out during another storm. Tom got out his oil lamps and built up the fire in the fireplace. They sat together on his couch, listening to the wind and watching the flames dance. "Can I ask you something?" Lisa said finally. Tom nodded, though he felt nervous. People's questions usually led to places he didn't want to go. How do you stand being alone out here all the time? Doesn't it get lonely? Tom was quiet for a long time. He'd never really talked about this with anyone. Lonely's better than hurt, he said finally. When you're alone, nobody can disappoint you. Lisa understood. I've been thinking the same thing since David died. That maybe it's easier to just not care about anyone. Is it working for you? Tom asked. Lisa laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. I don't know yet. I guess I'll find out when I leave here. The mention of her leaving made Tom's stomach drop. He'd been trying not to think about that. The roads would be clear soon and Lisa would go back to her life. He'd go back to his routine of taking care of animals and avoiding people. The thought depressed him more than he wanted to admit. That night, Tom lay awake on the couch listening to Lisa breathe in the next room. He realized he'd gotten used to having her there. The cabin felt less empty with another person in it. But Tom had learned not to get attached to things that couldn't stay. What he didn't know was that Lisa was lying awake too, thinking about how kind this quiet cowboy had been to her. How safe she felt in his simple cabin. How nice it was to have someone to eat dinner with, even if they didn't talk much. Both of them were discovering that their frozen hearts weren't as solid as they'd thought. Like the snow outside, ice could melt when it met enough warmth, and sometimes the warmth came from the most unexpected places. After a week, the main roads finally got plowed, but Lisa's car was completely ruined. The tow truck driver shook his head when he pulled it out of the ditch. The engine was frozen solid and the frame was bent from hitting a hidden fence post. Lisa stared at the wreck and felt overwhelmed. This car had been her only way to start over somewhere new. Tom surprised himself by offering to let her stay longer. Road to town's still pretty rough, he said, not quite meeting her eyes. Might take a few more days before you can get transportation sorted out. Lisa looked at him gratefully. I don't want to be a bother. I know you're not used to having people around. You're not a bother, Tom said, and he meant it. The cabin had felt different with her there. Less empty somehow. Lisa called her insurance company from Tom's old landline phone. They'd pay for the car eventually, but it would take weeks to process everything. She had enough money saved to buy a bus ticket to Wyoming, but something made her hesitate. Maybe it was the way Tom had saved her life, or maybe it was how peaceful the ranch felt after all the chaos in her world. If you really don't mind, she said carefully, I could stay a few more days and help out around here. You've been so kind to me. Tom nodded quickly, trying not to show how relieved he felt. The next morning, Lisa followed Tom outside to help with the morning chores. She'd never worked on a ranch before, but she was willing to learn. Tom showed her how to break ice on the water troughs and scatter hay for the cattle. Lisa was surprised by how satisfying the work felt. After months of sitting in her dark apartment grieving, it felt good to have a purpose. Tom's horses were especially drawn to Lisa. There was something gentle about her that they sensed. She would talk to them softly while she worked, telling them about her day or humming those melodies that Tom had grown to love hearing around the cabin. You're good with them, Tom said one afternoon, watching Lisa brush an old mare named Rosie. Most people are afraid of horses at first. I've always liked animals better than people, Lisa said. Then she blushed, realizing how that sounded. I mean, present company excluded, Tom smiled. It was becoming easier to smile around Lisa. I know what you mean. They worked side by side for the next several days, falling into a comfortable rhythm. Tom would handle the heavy work while Lisa took care of the smaller tasks. She learned to collect eggs from his chickens and help prepare feed. In the evening, she started cooking dinner while Tom finished up outside. Lisa was a much better cook than Tom. For years, he'd survived mostly on canned beans, frozen dinners, and the occasional steak. But Lisa could make a real meal out of simple ingredients. She found ways to use the vegetables Tom had stored in his cellar and taught him that food could be about more than just staying alive. Where did you learn to cook like this? Tom asked one evening, eating what Lisa called just a simple stew, but tasted like the best thing he'd had in years. My grandmother, Lisa said. She always said that cooking for someone was a way of showing love. I guess I forgot that for a while after David died. I barely ate anything for months. Tom looked at his full plate and felt something warm in his chest. Nobody had cooked for him in 15 years. As the days passed, they began to talk more. Not about heavy things, but about small stuff. Lisa told Tom about the book she'd read. Tom showed Lisa how to identify different bird calls. They discovered they both loved old Western movies and would watch them together after dinner. Lisa noticed that Tom was different when he was relaxed. He had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard. He'd make these quiet jokes that would have her laughing until her sides hurt. She couldn't remember the last time she'd laughed like that. Tom noticed that Lisa had a curiosity about everything. She wanted to understand how things worked, why the animals behaved certain ways, what different plants were called. Her questions made him see his own ranch through fresh eyes. One afternoon, Lisa was helping Tom move some hay bales when she slipped and twisted her ankle. It wasn't serious, but Tom immediately stopped everything to take care of her. He helped her back to the cabin and wrapped her ankle with gentle hands. "You don't have to baby me," Lisa protested, but she was touched by his concern. "Just being careful," Tom said. "Can't have you getting hurt on my watch." As Lisa sat with her foot elevated, she watched Tom make dinner for the first time since she'd been there. He was clumsy with the cooking, burning the edges of the grilled cheese sandwiches and making the tomato soup too salty. But Lisa thought it was the sweetest thing anyone had done for her in a long time. That evening, they sat together on the couch with Lisa's foot propped up on pillows. An old Clint Eastwood movie was playing on TV, but neither of them was really watching. They were both thinking about how natural this felt, how easy it was to be around each other. "Tom," Lisa said during a quiet moment, "why did your wife really leave?" Tom was quiet for so long that Lisa thought he wasn't going to answer. Finally, he spoke. "She said I didn't know how to love people, that I cared more about the ranch than I did about her and Amy." "Do you think that was true?" Tom considered this. "Maybe. I never learned how to show feelings the way some people do. My dad wasn't much for talking about emotions. After Jenny left, I figured she was right. Maybe I wasn't built for loving people." Lisa looked at him with sad eyes. "But look how you take care of your animals. Look how you saved my life and took care of me when I was a complete stranger. That's love, Tom. It just looks different than what some people expect." Tom felt something crack open in his chest when she said that. He'd spent 15 years believing he was broken somehow, that he didn't know how to care about people the right way. But maybe Lisa was right. Maybe love didn't always have to look like flowers and fancy words. That night, as Tom settled onto his couch and listened to Lisa getting ready for bed in the next room, he realized something had changed. He wasn't just helping her anymore because it was the right thing to do. He was helping her because he cared about her. And for the first time in 15 years, that didn't scare him. Lisa lay in Tom's bed thinking similar thoughts. This quiet cowboy who saved her life had shown her more genuine kindness in 2 weeks than she'd received from most people in her whole life. Being here with him felt right in a way she couldn't explain. It felt like home. Neither of them was ready to admit what was happening between them. They were both too hurt, too careful with their hearts. But trust was growing like the first green shoots that appear after a long winter. And trust, they were both learning, was where love always began. 3 weeks into her stay, Lisa woke up to Tom shouting outside. She quickly got dressed and ran out to the barn, where she found Tom kneeling next to a cow in obvious distress. The animal was trying to give birth, but something was wrong. "What can I do?" Lisa asked, even though she had no experience with this kind of thing. "Just stay calm and help me if I need you," Tom said, already rolling up his sleeves. "This calf is turned the wrong way." Lisa watched as Tom worked with the struggling cow, speaking to her in a gentle voice while he tried to help the calf find the right position. His movements were sure and practiced, but Lisa could see the concentration and concern on his face. This wasn't easy, even for someone with his experience. The cow bellowed in pain, and Lisa felt her chest tighten. The sound reminded her too much of the phone call she'd received about David's accident. The frantic voice of the park ranger telling her there'd been an emergency. The helpless feeling of being hours away while someone she loved was fighting for his life. "Come on, girl," Tom murmured to the cow. "You can do this." But as the minutes passed, it became clear that both the mother and baby were in serious danger. Tom's movements became more urgent. Sweat dripped down his face despite the cold morning air. Lisa found herself thinking about all the times she'd felt powerless to help when it really mattered. When David was trapped under those rocks, she'd been 300 miles away, completely unaware anything was wrong. By the time the rescue team reached him, he was already gone. She'd spent months wondering if things might have been different if she'd been there, if she'd tried harder to talk him out of the trip. The cow made another pained sound, and suddenly Lisa couldn't handle it anymore. All the grief she'd been holding back for months came pouring out. She started crying, not just tears, but deep, wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. "I can't," she gasped, backing away from the scene. "I can't watch this. I'm sorry." Tom looked up, torn between the emergency in front of him and Lisa's obvious distress. "Lisa, what's wrong?" "She's going to die, isn't she?" Lisa cried. "Just like David, I couldn't save him, and now I can't help save her either. I'm useless when people need me most." Tom made a quick decision. The calf was almost in position now. He could handle the rest alone. He stood up and walked over to Lisa, pulling her into his arms without thinking about it. Hey, he said softly, holding her while she cried. "This isn't your fault. None of it is your fault." Lisa clung to him, finally letting out all the pain she'd been carrying. "I should have stopped him from going on that climb. I knew something bad was going to happen. But I didn't want to be the nagging wife, so I just let him go." "You couldn't have known," Tom said, running his hand over her hair. "And even if you had tried to stop him, it sounds like he would have gone anyway. That's not on you." They stayed like that for several minutes, Lisa crying into Tom's chest while he held her and murmured quiet words of comfort. Tom wasn't used to this kind of emotional situation, but something about Lisa's pain called to his own. He understood the weight of regret, the way it could crush you if you let it. When Lisa finally calmed down enough to breathe normally, she pulled back and looked at Tom with red, swollen eyes. "I'm sorry. I ruined everything. I should go help with the cow." "No," Tom said gently. "You stay here." "But Lisa, I need to tell you something too." He helped her sit down on a hay bale, then sat beside her. Behind them, the cow had gotten quiet, which was either very good or very bad. "When Jenny left me," Tom began, "she took Amy to live in Denver. For the first few years, Amy would come visit during summers and holidays. But every visit got harder. Jenny had filled her head with stories about how I chose the ranch over my family, how I was cold and couldn't love anyone properly." Lisa listened, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "The last time Amy visited, she was 16. She spent the whole week complaining about everything. The ranch was boring. There was nothing to do. I was no fun to be around. On her last day, she told me she was tired of pretending she wanted to be here. She said maybe Jenny was right about me." Tom's voice got quiet. "I let her leave without fighting for her. I could have tried harder to show her I loved her, but I was hurt and stubborn. Now she's 20 and I barely hear from her. I gave up on my own daughter because it was easier than risking more rejection." Lisa reached over and took his hand. "That doesn't make you a bad father, Tom. It makes you human." "Maybe," Tom said. "But the point is, we all have things we wish we'd done differently. That doesn't mean we stop trying to help people when we can." They heard a small sound from behind them and turned to see the cow standing over a newborn calf. Both mother and baby were alive and seemed healthy. "Oh my God," Lisa breathed. "You did it. You saved them." Tom smiled, feeling relieved and exhausted. "We did it. You were here with me, even when it was hard." Lisa looked at the new family and felt something shift inside her. Maybe Tom was right. Maybe being there, even when you felt helpless, was its own kind of help. That evening, after they'd made sure the cow and calf were settled and comfortable, Tom and Lisa sat at his kitchen table over cups of coffee. The emotional intensity of the day had left them both feeling raw and open. "Can I ask you something?" Lisa said. "Do you think it's possible to love someone again after you've been hurt so badly?" Tom looked at her across the table. Her eyes were still red from crying, but there was something different in her expression now. "Something hopeful, I don't know," he said honestly. "I've spent 15 years thinking it wasn't worth the risk. But being around you these past few weeks has made me wonder if maybe I was wrong." Lisa felt her heart skip. "What do you mean?" Tom took a deep breath. This was the hardest thing he'd said in years. "I mean that you've made this old cabin feel like a home again. I mean that I look forward to seeing you in the morning and I dread the thought of you leaving. I mean that maybe Jenny was wrong about me not knowing how to love people." Lisa stared at him, hardly believing what she was hearing. "Tom, I'm not saying we should rush into anything," Tom said quickly. "We're both carrying a lot of baggage, but maybe we could figure it out together." Lisa reached across the table and took his hand again. "I'd like that," she said softly. "I'd like that a lot." Outside, the wind had died down and the stars were visible for the first time in weeks. Inside the cabin, two people who had thought their hearts were too broken to love again sat holding hands across a simple wooden table, ready to find out if they were wrong. Spring arrived early that year, bringing warmer weather and longer days. The snow began to melt, creating little streams that ran down the hillsides toward the valley. Lisa had been at the ranch for over a month now, and both she and Tom had settled into a routine that felt natural and comfortable. But with the changing season came reminders that the outside world still existed. Lisa received a phone call from the lawyer handling David's estate. After months of paperwork and waiting, everything was finally settled. The insurance money and the sale of their belongings had left her with enough to start over wherever she wanted. "That's good news," Tom said when she told him, but his voice sounded flat. Lisa could see the worry in his eyes. Having money meant she had choices now. She could go anywhere, do anything. She wasn't stuck at the ranch anymore out of necessity. "It is good news," Lisa agreed, but she didn't sound entirely happy about it either. The same week, Tom got his own difficult phone call. His ex-wife Jenny was on the other end and she was angry. "I need you to sell your half of the ranch," she said without any polite small talk. "Brian wants to buy a bigger house in California and we need the money from our share." Tom felt his stomach drop. "That ranch has been in my family for 3 generations, Jenny. You know I can't sell it." "You don't have a choice," Jenny said coldly. "The divorce agreement gives me the right to force a sale if I need the money. My lawyer says we can have it on the market within 60 days. After Tom hung up, he sat at his kitchen table feeling like his world was falling apart. The ranch was everything to him. It was his home, his livelihood, his connection to his father and grandfather. Without it, he'd have nothing left. Lisa found him there an hour later, staring at a cup of cold coffee. "What's wrong?" she asked, sitting down across from him. Tom told her about Jenny's call and the legal mess he was facing. Lisa listened with growing anger at how unfairly Tom was being treated. "Can't you fight it?" she asked. "I can try, but lawyers cost money I don't have. And even if I could afford to fight, Jenny's new husband has connections. They'll probably win in the end." Lisa was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then she said something that surprised them both. "What if I helped you buy out her share?" Tom looked at her like she'd lost her mind. "Lisa, no. I can't take your money, and why not? You saved my life. You've given me a place to stay and helped me figure out what I want to do next. Let me help you save your home." "Because it would be too much," Tom said. "What if things don't work out between us? You'd be stuck as my business partner even if you decided you wanted nothing to do with me." Lisa reached across the table and took his hands. "Tom, I've been thinking about this for days. I don't want to leave here. This ranch, this life being with you, it feels right in a way nothing has felt right since David died." Tom felt his heart racing. "Are you sure? This is a hard life, Lisa, lonely sometimes. Not much excitement." "I've had excitement," Lisa said. "It killed my husband. I'd rather have peace and someone who cares about me." They talked for hours that night, making plans and discussing the risks. It wasn't a romantic proposal or a declaration of undying love. It was something more practical and honest. Two people who had found something good together and wanted to protect it. The next few days brought new challenges. Lisa had to call David's family and tell them she wouldn't be moving back to Wyoming as planned. His parents were hurt and confused. They'd been looking forward to having her closer, and they didn't understand why she wanted to stay with some cowboy they'd never met. "You're running away from David's memory," his mother said during a tearful phone conversation. This isn't what he would have wanted. Lisa felt guilty, but she also felt frustrated. David was gone and she was still alive. Didn't she have the right to build a new life? Tom had his own family drama to deal with. When he called his daughter Amy to tell her about the ranch situation, she surprised him by actually caring. "Dad, you can't lose Grandpa's ranch," Amy said. "That place is part of our family history. I'm going to try to keep it," Tom said. "There's someone here who might help me buy out your mother's share." "Someone? Who?" Tom took a breath. "Her name is Lisa. She's been staying here for a while now." Amy was quiet for a long moment. "Are you dating someone?" "It's complicated," Tom said, which was his way of avoiding the question. "Dad, I know I haven't been the best daughter. I know I listened to Mom's side of things without giving you a fair chance. But if this person makes you happy, then I'm glad." Tom felt tears in his eyes. It was the first time in years that Amy had sounded like she actually cared about his happiness. Meanwhile, Lisa was learning what ranch life was really like. Tom taught her how to operate the small tractor and how to repair fence posts. She learned to recognize when the animals were sick and how to give them basic medical care. The work was harder than anything she'd done before, but it satisfied her in a way her old office job never had. In the evenings, they would sit together and plan their future. Tom showed Lisa his grandfather's journals, full of notes about the ranch's history and the best practices for caring for the land and animals. Lisa shared her ideas about maybe opening a small business in town, using her bookkeeping skills to help other ranchers with their finances. "Are you sure about this?" Tom asked her one night as they watched the sunset from his porch. "Once we're partners in this ranch, there's no going back easily." Lisa looked at him, this quiet man who had saved her life and slowly helped her heal from her grief. "I'm sure," she said. "I'm more sure of this than I've been of anything in a long time." Tom nodded, feeling a mixture of excitement and terror. For 15 years he'd lived a careful, controlled life where nothing could hurt him. Now he was about to risk everything: his ranch, his heart, his future, on the hope that this woman who'd literally fallen into his world might want to stay forever. The next morning, Lisa called her lawyer and started the process of transferring the money to buy out Jenny's share of the ranch. Tom called his own lawyer to begin the legal paperwork that would make Lisa his partner in every sense of the word. As they worked side by side that afternoon, fixing a broken gate in the pasture, both of them felt like they were standing at the edge of a cliff, ready to jump together into something completely unknown. Late spring brought the annual cattle roundup, and Tom needed every hand he could get. Lisa had been learning ranch work for weeks now, but this would be her first real test. The work was dangerous and required skill that only came with experience. "Maybe you should sit this one out," Tom suggested the morning they were supposed to move the cattle to the summer pasture. "Not a chance," Lisa said, adjusting her borrowed cowboy hat. "I'm your partner now, remember? Partners don't sit on the sidelines." Tom smiled despite his worry. Lisa had surprised him over and over with her determination to learn this life. She'd gone from city woman to capable ranch hand faster than he'd thought possible. The roundup started well. Lisa stayed close to Tom, following his lead as they moved the herd across the rolling hills. She was getting comfortable on horseback, and her natural gentleness with animals served her well. The cattle seemed to trust her, which made the job easier, but cattle work was unpredictable, and even experienced cowboys could get into trouble fast. They were moving through a rocky area when Tom's horse stepped wrong and stumbled badly. Tom was thrown hard, landing on his left arm with a sickening crack that Lisa heard from 20 feet away. "Tom!" Lisa jumped off her horse and ran to where he was lying in the dirt, his face white with pain. "I think my wrist is broken," Tom said through gritted teeth. "Definitely sprained at the very least." Lisa looked around at the scattered cattle and felt panic rising in her throat. "What do we do?" "Should I call for help?" "No cell service out here," Tom said, trying to sit up. "We need to get these cattle moved or they'll scatter all over creation. Some of them might get hurt." "Tom, you're hurt. The cattle can wait." "No, they can't. Trust me on this, Lisa. Help me get back on my horse. We can finish this." Lisa wanted to argue, but she could see the determination in Tom's eyes. This was his life, his responsibility, and he wasn't going to abandon it even with a broken wrist. Working together, they managed to get Tom back in his saddle. Lisa took over most of the difficult work, riding back and forth to keep the herd together while Tom directed her from his position. It took twice as long as usual, but they got the cattle safely to the summer pasture. By the time they made it back to the ranch house, Tom's wrist was swollen to twice its normal size. Lisa drove him to the hospital in town, where X-rays confirmed what they'd suspected, a clean break that would need a cast. "You're going to need help for the next 6 weeks," the doctor told Tom. "No heavy lifting. No working with the animals alone." Lisa looked at Tom with concern. Running a ranch was already a 2-person job on a good day. With Tom injured, everything would be harder. "I'll figure it out," Tom said, but Lisa could see the worry in his eyes. "We'll figure it out," Lisa corrected him. Over the next few weeks, Lisa learned more about ranch work than she had in all her previous time there. With Tom limited to giving directions and doing light work with one hand, Lisa had to step up in ways she'd never imagined. She learned to drive the tractor, to move hay bales, and to handle the larger animals on her own. Tom watched her work with growing admiration and something else, something that felt dangerously close to love. Lisa never complained, never suggested that maybe this life was too hard for her. She just rolled up her sleeves and did whatever needed doing. "You're getting good at this," Tom told her one evening as they sat on the porch, watching the horses graze in the pasture. "I have a good teacher," Lisa said, smiling at him, "even if he is too stubborn to take proper rest when he's injured." "I've been taking care of this place alone for 15 years, Tom said. "Hard to just sit back and watch." "Well, you're not alone anymore," Lisa said. "That's the whole point of partners, isn't it?" The word partners had taken on new meaning for both of them. They'd started as business partners, but somewhere along the way they'd become something more. Neither of them had said it out loud yet. But the feeling was there in the way they worked together, the way they took care of each other, the way they'd begun to plan their future as we instead of I. The turning point came on a Saturday evening in late May. The county was having its annual spring dance at the community center in town, and several neighbors had mentioned it to Lisa during her trips to buy supplies. "You should go," Mrs. Patterson from the neighboring ranch had said. "Tom never comes to these things anymore, but maybe you could convince him. It would be good for him to get out and socialize." Lisa wasn't much of a dancer, and Tom seemed like the type who'd rather have root canal surgery than attend a community dance, but something made her bring it up that evening. "There's a dance in town tomorrow night," she said casually while they were eating dinner. Tom nearly choked on his food. "A dance?" "Just a community thing. I thought maybe we could go. I've never seen you anywhere but this ranch. I'm curious what you're like around other people." "I'm not much for dancing," Tom said, which was a massive understatement. He hadn't been to a social event since his divorce. "Neither am I," Lisa admitted. "But it might be fun. We could just go for an hour, have some punch, listen to the music." Tom looked at her across the table. She was wearing one of his old flannel shirts over her jeans, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, and he thought she was the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. The idea of taking her somewhere and showing her off to the whole county was both terrifying and appealing. "All right," he said, surprising them both. "But if I step on your feet, don't say I didn't warn you." The next evening, Lisa wore the one nice dress she'd had with her when her car crashed, a simple blue sundress that brought out her eyes. Tom put on his best clean shirt and the dress boots he hadn't worn in years. The community center was decorated with spring flowers and string lights. A local band was playing country music, and the dance floor was full of couples of all ages. Lisa felt nervous as they walked in together. "Everyone's staring at us," she whispered to Tom. "Can you blame them?" Tom said. "You look beautiful, and nobody's ever seen me at one of these things with a date." Lisa felt her cheeks warm. It was the first time Tom had called her beautiful, and the first time either of them had used the word date. They got cups of punch and stood along the wall, watching the dancers and making awkward small talk with neighbors. Tom introduced Lisa as his friend who's been helping out at the ranch, which was technically true but felt incomplete. When the band started playing a slow song, Tom surprised Lisa by holding out his good hand. "Want to try?" he asked. Lisa nodded, and they made their way onto the dance floor. Tom was stiff and nervous at first, clearly uncomfortable being the center of attention, but as they swayed together to the music, he began to relax. Lisa looked up at him as they danced, this quiet man who had saved her life and given her a home. The lights reflected in his eyes, and she could see something there she'd never seen before. Happiness. Pure, uncomplicated happiness. "What are you thinking about?" Tom asked quietly. "Just how different my life is now than I thought it would be," Lisa said. "How grateful I am for that blizzard," Tom smiled. "Strangest thing I ever said, but I'm grateful for it too." When the song ended, they stayed on the dance floor for another one. And another. Tom got more confident with each dance, and Lisa found herself laughing at his whispered jokes and comments about their fellow dancers. On the drive home, they were both quiet, but it was a comfortable quiet. The kind of silence between two people who were perfectly content with each other's company. When they reached the ranch, Tom walked Lisa to the porch like a gentleman. They stood there for a moment, not quite ready to end the evening. "I had fun tonight," Lisa said. "So did I," Tom replied. "More fun than I've had in 15 years. Lisa looked at him in the moonlight, this man who had become so important to her in such a short time. Without overthinking it, she reached up and kissed him. It was a gentle kiss, tentative at first, then deeper as Tom wrapped his good arm around her and pulled her closer. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. "I love you," Lisa said, the words coming out before she could stop them. Tom looked at her with wonder, like she'd just told him something impossible. "I love you too," he said. "I didn't think I'd ever say those words to anyone again." They held each other on the porch for a long time, looking up at the stars and listening to the night sounds of the ranch around them. Both of them knew that everything had changed with those 3 simple words, and both of them were ready for whatever came next. Summer was in full swing when Jenny showed up at the ranch unannounced. Tom was in the barn checking on a sick calf when he heard car doors slamming in the driveway. He walked outside to find his ex-wife stepping out of a black SUV, followed by a man in an expensive suit who was obviously her lawyer. Lisa was working in the garden she'd planted behind the house. She looked up at the sound of voices and felt her stomach drop when she saw the angry expression on the woman's face. This had to be Jenny, Tom's ex-wife. "Where is he?" Jenny demanded when she spotted Lisa. "Where's Tom?" "I'm right here," Tom said, walking up from the barn. His voice was calm, but Lisa could see the tension in his shoulders. Jenny looked older than Lisa had expected, but she was still attractive in a polished, city way. Everything about her screamed money and sophistication, from her perfect blonde hair to her designer clothes. "We need to talk," Jenny said without any greeting. "About this ridiculous arrangement you've made." Tom looked confused. "What arrangement?" The lawyer stepped forward. "Mr. Morrison, we understand you found someone willing to buy out Mrs. Patterson's share of this property. We're here to inform you that's not going to happen." Lisa felt her heart sink. She and Tom had been working with their lawyer for weeks to get the paperwork ready. The money was sitting in an account ready to transfer. What could have gone wrong? "The divorce agreement specifies that if the property is sold, Mrs. Patterson gets half the proceeds," the lawyer continued. "It doesn't matter if you're selling to a third party or keeping it in the family. She's entitled to half of whatever this ranch is worth today." Tom felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. "But we're not selling the whole ranch. We're just buying out her share." "At current market value," Jenny said with a cold smile, "this land has tripled in value since our divorce. My half is worth a lot more than what your girlfriend here is offering." Lisa stepped forward. "We based our offer on the appraised value from the divorce settlement." That seemed fair. Jenny looked Lisa up and down like she was examining a bug. "And you are?" "Lisa Chen," Lisa said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Tom's partner?" "Partner," Jenny repeated with a laugh. "How modern. Tell me, partner, do you have any idea what you're getting yourself into? Tom here has a history of choosing his precious ranch over the people in his life." "That's enough," Tom said, his voice getting hard. "You got what you wanted in the divorce, Jenny. You took Amy, you took half my inheritance, and you got your new life in the city. What more do you want?" "I want what I'm legally entitled to," Jenny shot back. "And I want Amy to inherit something worthwhile someday, not this rundown operation you're barely keeping afloat." "Amy's an adult now," Tom said. "She can speak for herself." Jenny's lawyer opened his briefcase and pulled out some papers. "Mrs. Patterson is prepared to force a sale of the entire property if necessary. You have 30 days to come up with fair market value for her share, or we'll petition the court to liquidate the asset." After they left, Tom and Lisa sat at the kitchen table in stunned silence. The number the lawyer had quoted was 3 times what Lisa had available, even with all of David's insurance money. "I can't ask you to use everything you have," Tom said finally. "It wouldn't be right." "But this is your family's ranch," Lisa protested. "Your grandfather built this place. It's your whole life." Tom looked around the kitchen, seeing it through new eyes. Every corner held memories of his childhood, of working alongside his father and grandfather. The idea of losing it all made him feel sick. "Maybe it's time to let go," he said quietly. "Maybe Jenny's right. Maybe I have been holding on to the past instead of building a future." Lisa reached across the table and took his hands. "Don't say that. This place isn't just your past, Tom. It's our future too. But their problems weren't just legal. The news that Tom was planning to remarry had reached David's family, and they were not happy. Lisa received a phone call from David's mother that left her in tears. "How can you do this to David's memory?" Mrs. Rodriguez asked. "It's only been 8 months since he died. 8 months and you're already planning to marry some stranger?" "David is gone," Lisa said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'll always love him, but I'm still alive. I deserve to be happy, with his money." David's father had gotten on the phone now and his voice was full of accusation. "You're using the insurance money he died for to buy some Cowboy's ranch. That's not what David would have wanted. Lisa felt like she was being torn in two. She loved David's parents and understood their pain, but she also couldn't live her life according to what a dead man might have wanted. "The money is mine now," she said. "David would want me to use it to build a new life." "Not with some rebound relationship," Mrs. Rodriguez said. "Come home, Lisa. Come back to Seattle where people who really love you can take care of you." After the phone call, Lisa sat on the porch and cried. Tom found her there an hour later. "What's wrong?" he asked, sitting down beside her. Lisa told him about the conversation with David's parents. Tom listened without saying anything, but she could see the doubt creeping into his eyes. "Maybe they're right," Tom said finally. "Maybe this is all happening too fast. Maybe you need more time to grieve properly." "Don't you dare," Lisa said, turning to face him. "Don't you dare let other people's opinions make you doubt what we have." "But what if they're right? What if you're just running away from your grief and I'm taking advantage of that?" Lisa stood up, frustrated and angry. "You know what, Tom? This is exactly what Jenny was talking about. You're so busy protecting yourself that you can't see when someone actually loves you." They had their first real fight that night. Tom thought Lisa was being impulsive, risking everything for a relationship that was still too new to trust. Lisa thought Tom was being a coward, letting fear and other people's opinions ruin their chance at happiness. They went to bed angry and woke up on opposite sides of the cabin, both wondering if maybe everyone else was right. Maybe they were moving too fast. Maybe their love wasn't strong enough to survive the real world's pressures. But that afternoon, while they were working in awkward silence to repair a broken fence, Tom's daughter Amy called. She'd heard about the legal trouble with the ranch and wanted to help. "Dad, I've been thinking," Amy said. "I have some money saved up from my job. It's not much, but maybe it could help." Tom felt tears in his eyes. "Amy, honey, I can't take your money." "It's not just about the money," Amy said. "I've been thinking about what Mom said to you all those years, about how you chose the ranch over people. But that's not true, is it? The ranch is where you take care of people. The animals, the land, now Lisa. Maybe I was too young to understand that before." After the phone call, Tom found Lisa in the garden. She was pulling weeds with unnecessary violence, clearly still upset about their fight. "Amy wants to help," he said. Lisa looked up, dirt smudged on her cheek. "Help how?" "She has some savings." And she said something else. She said the ranch isn't about choosing things over people. It's about taking care of people and things you love. Lisa stood up, brushing dirt off her hands. "Smart kid. She gets that from you," Tom said. "The part about seeing things clearly, I mean." They looked at each other across the garden, both remembering why they'd fallen in love in the first place. The outside world could say whatever it wanted, but here on this land they both loved, they knew what they had was real. "We're going to figure this out," Lisa said. "Whatever it takes, we're going to keep this place." Tom nodded. Together. It was the first time either of them had said that word with complete certainty, and it felt like a promise they both intended to keep. 1 year after the blizzard that changed their lives, Tom and Lisa stood hand in hand on the hill overlooking their ranch. The legal battles were behind them now. With Amy's help, some creative financing, and Lisa's determination, they'd managed to buy out Jenny's share and keep the ranch in the family. It hadn't been easy. They'd had to take out loans and make payment plans, but the ranch was theirs now, completely and legally. More importantly, they'd proven to themselves and everyone else that their love was strong enough to survive outside pressure and financial stress. The wedding was planned for the following Saturday. Nothing fancy, just a simple ceremony on the ranch with the people who mattered most to them. Lisa had wanted something small and meaningful, and Tom had been relieved not to deal with a big production. "Nervous?" Lisa asked, watching Tom check on the horses one more time before the ceremony. "Terrified," Tom admitted with a smile. But good terrified, Lisa understood. They'd both been married before and they'd both been hurt badly. Taking this step required a kind of courage that had nothing to do with broken bones or difficult calves. The guests started arriving around noon. Amy had driven up from California, and Lisa was amazed by how much the young woman looked like her father. She had Tom's quiet way of observing everything before speaking, but she also had a warmth that Tom was still learning to show. "I'm glad he found you," Amy told Lisa while they were setting up chairs in the front yard. "I haven't seen him this happy since I was a little kid." David's parents had surprised everyone by coming to the wedding. It had taken months of careful conversation. but they'd finally accepted that Lisa's new life didn't diminish her love for their son. Mrs. Rodriguez even brought Lisa's wedding dress, a simple white dress that Lisa had bought years ago but never worn because David had wanted to elope instead. He would want you to be happy, Mrs. Rodriguez said, helping Lisa get ready in Tom's bedroom. We were wrong to try to keep you trapped in grief. The ceremony was performed by the local pastor, a practical man who knew both Tom and Lisa well by now. He'd counseled them through some of their doubts and had watched their relationship grow stronger through each challenge. Love isn't just a feeling, the pastor said as they stood before their small group of family and friends. It's a choice you make every day. Tom and Lisa have already proven they can make that choice when it's difficult. Today they're promising to keep making it for the rest of their lives. When Tom and Lisa exchanged vows, they spoke from the heart about what they'd learned from each other. Tom promised to trust Lisa's love even when his own insecurities tried to convince him otherwise. Lisa promised to be patient with Tom's healing process while never settling for less than the full relationship she deserved. You saved my life, Lisa said, looking into Tom's eyes. But more than that, you showed me that it was worth saving. You saved mine too, Tom replied. You showed me that love doesn't have to hurt, that some people stay when things get difficult. When the pastor pronounced them husband and wife, the small crowd cheered. Amy cried happy tears, and even some of the neighbors who'd been skeptical about their whirlwind romance had to admit they'd never seen two people more suited for each other. The reception was held right there on the ranch, with tables set up under string lights and a local band playing country music. Lisa danced with Tom, with Amy, and even with David's father, who told her he was proud of her courage. Starting over takes guts, he said. David always admired brave people. He would have liked Tom. As the evening wound down and the last guests headed home, Tom and Lisa found themselves alone on their porch, looking out at the land they'd fought so hard to keep. No regrets? Tom asked. Only that it took a blizzard and a near-death experience to find you, Lisa said. Tom laughed. Maybe that's the only way two stubborn people like us could have met. 6 months after the wedding, Lisa opened her small business in town. Prairie Bookkeeping served ranchers and small businesses throughout the county. She worked from a tiny office above the hardware store 3 days a week, and from home the other days. It was the perfect balance of independence and partnership. Tom had also made changes. With Lisa's encouragement, he'd started reaching out to Amy more regularly. Their relationship was still healing, but Amy had started visiting more often. She was even talking about maybe moving back to Montana after she finished college. The ranch itself had become something neither Tom nor Lisa had expected. Word had gotten out about Lisa's way with troubled animals, and people started bringing horses that had been abused or neglected. Without planning it, they'd become an unofficial rescue operation. We should make this official, Lisa suggested one evening as they watched a formerly aggressive stallion let Amy brush his mane. The horse had been scheduled to be put down when his owner brought him to them 3 months ago. Now he was gentle as a lamb. You want to run a horse rescue? Tom asked. I want to help animals that need saving, Lisa said. The same way you helped me. They applied for nonprofit status and started Second Chance Ranch the following spring. The operation was small, but it gave them both a sense of purpose beyond just maintaining their own land. They were creating a place where broken things could heal and start over. On quiet evenings, Tom and Lisa would sit on their porch and watch the sun set over the mountains. They'd talk about their plans for the rescue, about Amy's visits, about the simple pleasures of their shared life. Do you ever think about what would have happened if that storm hadn't hit? Lisa asked one such evening. Tom considered this. I think we would have found each other somehow. Maybe not that night, maybe not that way, but somehow. Some people are just meant to save each other. Lisa smiled and took his hand. Lucky for us, we didn't have to wait any longer than we did. As the stars came out above their ranch, Tom and Lisa sat together in comfortable silence. Two people who had learned that the best love stories aren't about perfect people finding perfect love. They're about broken people deciding to heal together, creating something beautiful from the pieces of their separate sorrows. The ranch that had once been Tom's refuge from the world had become their shared foundation for building new dreams. And sometimes, late at night when the wind whispered through the valley, they could swear they heard the land itself approving of the love that had taken root there, growing stronger with each passing season.